Hey guys, how's it going? This is Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 news update. So the Watchpoint broadcast at the end of this week's fixtures has given us a big insight into what's going to happen in May in the Overwatch League, with not only a massive amount of fixtures revealed, we've also had the time at which London Spitfire are going to come back to competitive play, and also we have had the announcement of a tournament that will be taking place in May and could also be replicated in June and July. But there are also some other things I want to go on about concerning the London Spitfire and the Vancouver Titans as well. So we've got a lot to get through in this video. So first of all, we're going to talk about these fixtures. The fixtures for week 13, week 14 and week 15 have all been announced, with some significant changes. So what we will see going forward in May is that we will see inter-NA matches, and what I mean by that is East Coast versus West Coast. So we're going to see more variety in these North American matches now, instead of the constant LA Valiant versus San Francisco Shock matchups and stuff like that, and the Atlanta Reign versus Philadelphia Fusion. We've seen these fixtures a lot, and we should get more varied fixtures now in NA. Also, we've had a clear answer as to where teams are situated and who they'll be playing against. So London Spitfire, as we knew, are in Korea. They will return on May the 9th against the Chengdu Hunters in Korea at 11 AM GMT. So yes, it's not next week, but it's the week after. It's the week I expected London to come back, week 14. It will mean that the full London Spitfire roster will be available for them at their return to the Overwatch League, including their new main tank Jihyun, who I believe turns 18 on the 8th of May, which is very fortuitous. I think you'll agree. But more on London Spitfire a little bit later on in the video. But these fixtures look really interesting. We're going to see next week New York Excelsior versus the Shanghai Dragons, which is going to be big, because the Shanghai Dragons have absolutely pummeled the Seoul Dynasty this week, and it'll be very interesting to see that matchup. But of course, that's what we will leave until the week previews for the roundups, but it's great to see a load of fixtures announced. But on to this tournament then, and this tournament is actually very interesting. It's going to have a prize pool. It's not going to have a massive prize pool, but it's going to have a prize pool. But it's also going to have an impact on the standings in the league, which is very unique. Tournaments in the Overwatch League haven't had this before. So, in terms of the prize pool, there is a $225,000 prize pool. This tournament will be split up into an Asian region and an NA region, depending on where these teams are situated. So, what you need to know right now is where the teams are situated. There are 13 teams situated in North America, and 7 teams situated in Asia. That number is a bit odd, and we're going to find out why now. So, in Asia, Chengdu Hunters, Guangzhou Charge, Hangzhou Spark, London Spitfire, New York Excelsior, Shanghai Dragons and Seoul Dynasty will make up the tournament, which makes sense. They are all situated in Asia right now, but there is one team missing there, isn't there? So, in NA, we have Atlanta Reign, Boston Uprising, Dallas Fuel, Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, Los Angeles Gladiators, Los Angeles Valiant, Paris Eternal, Philadelphia Fusion, San Francisco Shock, Toronto Defiant, Washington Justice, and yes, the Vancouver Titans. The Vancouver Titans have boomeranged from NA to Korea and back to NA. I don't know why, to be quite honest with you. They've kind of messed up the balance as well. I don't know what's going on with Vancouver right now. Everything is very, very weird. But this boomeranging is not going to do anything for team morale, and it could be a reason why we are seeing some revolt from the coaches and players, because they spent 2 weeks in isolation to prepare themselves for playing in Korea, and now they're not playing in Korea, they're back in Canada, or back in NA. So, it's a weird situation to be in, but again, we'll see what happens. But back to the tournament, it's a $225,000 prize pool. It'll be divided up into the regions. So I believe it's $125,000 for the NA region, and $100,000 for the Asian region, obviously because there's less teams in Asia. And the tournament champions will get $40,000, the second place teams will get $20,000, third and fourth will get $5,000, and each tournament win per team will get $5,000, in addition to a placement prizing. So every win in this tournament means something, no matter where you finish, because you will get $5,000 for your team, which is actually a really nice way of doing things. So it's going to be weird. I think the setup of this tournament is going to be weird, and it's going to take some working out. This tournament will take place on May the 22nd, which is a Friday, for the qualification knockouts in North America. And then it will take place over the weekend of the 23rd and the 24th for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And that will be replicated in the Asia region, but it'll be just over the weekends, because you'll only have quarterfinals and semifinals and finals, because there won't be a qualification because there are not enough teams. So the shared tournament rules across Asia and NA, the hero pools will be suspended. All heroes will be available, so it'll be very, very interesting to see that. Matches will be first to 3 until the finals, which will be first to 4. So the finals will be big chunky matches like we used to see back in Season 2 and Season 1. Higher seeded teams will pick the first map. That's pretty normal. The losing team of each map picks the next map in the series. Again, pretty normal for a knockout sort of thing. And in case of draws, the team that picked the previous map picks again. So that's cool. It's really nice to see. And I think this will be really cool for us to see a knockout form of tournament, because otherwise we were not going to see anything until the playoffs, which is the fall or whatever. And we were meant to see a mid-season tournament, and this kind of makes up for that. Yeah, we're not going to get All-Star until perhaps the end of the season, but it's nice to see something at least. So, specific rules for the North American tournament. Qualification, the 12th versus 13th seed match does not count for prizing. Interesting. The knockouts, 5 to 7 seeds will get to pick their opponent, with the 5th seed selecting first, so the highest seed gets to pick their opponent first, if you get what I mean. Quarterfinals, the 1 to 4 seeds in the tournament, so the four highest placed standing teams in the tournament. See how this gets confusing. But the 4 teams that are highest in the standings for the North American regions will get an automatic bye into the quarterfinal round, and the 1 to 3 seeds will get to pick their opponents from the advancing teams, with the first seed selecting first. It is very, very complicated. And then the semifinals and finals will be fixed matchups based on progression through the bracket. So, kind of the TLDR of it is that in the quarterfinals, there will be a set team, seed 1, seed 2, seed 3, and seed 4, that'll be in those finals. And then you'll have the teams coming from the qualification to fill in the spots to take on those top 4 teams, but those top 4 teams will get to pick their opponents, with the exception of the 4th seeded team, who won't be able to pick their opponents because they'll all be gone by then, because 1, 2, and 3 will have already picked. It's a bit confusing, but we'll get there. We'll get there. The main thing is, the higher you are in the standings, you will get to pick your opponent you're up against in the quarterfinals. So that's kind of the thing of it. So Philadelphia Fusion will probably be able to get to pick their opponents, because they'll probably be the highest seeded team in North America. In the Asia bracket, it will be either the New York Excelsior or Shanghai, probably. That will be the highest seeded team, and therefore they will get to pick who they take on. It'll be interesting to see who they pick, actually. Be very interesting to see who they pick. And the specific rules for the Asia tournament, all 7 teams qualify with no qualification match because there's less teams. Quarterfinals, the 2 and 3 seeds get to pick their opponents, with 2 seeds selecting first. And then the semifinals and finals will be fixed matchups based on progression through the bracket. Pretty self-explanatory. But how does it impact on the standings in the league? Well, that is because the tournament champions will get three wins on their record in the league. The second place teams will get 2 wins, and the third and fourth place teams will get 1 win on their record in the league. So it will have an impact on the standings in the league, which makes these tournaments mean something. And John Spector, the vice chairman or whatever of the Overwatch League, was saying this. Teams wanted these matches to matter, not just because they have a prize pool, and let's be honest, in Overwatch League terms, the prize pool is pretty minuscule, but they wanted it to matter to the season, and therefore, Adding wins to the record will make it matter. Imagine if the Philadelphia Fusion are top of the standings and they get 3 wins added to their record because they win this tournament. That would be massive. It can have a massive impact on the standings if you win this tournament. Massive. So that it's a very interesting thing, and we'll see how it works. The league are trialing it for May, and if it does work and people like it, then it will be rolled out. John Spector said that we could do this in June and July if it works. So this will be interesting. This will be very, very interesting. And that's partly why we've had the fixtures for the next 3 weeks announced, because teams will not be moving around now. They will not be moving around now. And they shouldn't be anyway. But it's good to see some stability happening. The only weird thing at the moment is the Vancouver Titans. That's the only weird thing. Because now that the Vancouver Titans have moved to NA, the number 1 seed in Asia will get a bye into the semi-finals because there aren't enough teams. Whereas if the Vancouver Titans had been in Asia, then there wouldn't have been a bye for the number 1 seed. But that's the tournament, and it should be really, really interesting. Shout out to the Florida Mayhem, who have just, I believe, set the time for the quickest match win ever. I'm sure you can guess against who, but well done to them. And lastly, I want to talk about the London Spitfire. So there has been a rumour going around about the London Spitfire and Cloud9. And it concerns the start of this season. It concerns the off-season. And the rumour is that the London Spitfire or Cloud9 tried to pull out of the league entirely. Whether that means London Spitfire as a team tried to pull out and there would have been 19 teams, or whether that is Cloud9 trying to sell the London spot, I don't know. But I want to say something about this because I extremely doubt that these rumours are true. And I want to give my reasoning for that. And there is one massive reason that I can see that rumour is just not true. Why would British Hurricane still be a thing? So, Cloud9 not only own London Spitfire, they own British Hurricane, which is the contenders team of London Spitfire. And British Hurricane hasn't gone anywhere. British Hurricane is still fighting very, very hard in contenders. It is top of the contender standings. It looks like one of the best teams in Europe right now, if not the best team. And so, would the British Hurricane not bite the dust before the London Spitfire did? It does seem a little odd to be suggesting that the London Spitfire tried to pull out of the league when the British Hurricane are still a thing. Like the Eternal Academy have just recently disbanded. I would expect the British Hurricane to bite the dust before London Spitfire did, if Cloud9 were trying to pull out. So, it does seem a little odd that this rumour's about. But there is also the flip side of the coin, where you can say, well, perhaps it does have some substance to it. Because, if you've seen the London roster, London have scaled down massively on what they had in terms of pay, right? And we all said this at the start of the season, they've got a bunch of unknowns, mostly. And people will say, well, Glister and Bernard couldn't have come that cheap for London Spitfire. Well, perhaps not. They probably are one of the more expensive players on the roster, you know, especially compared to the likes of Sanguinar and people they've picked up from Tier 3 and Tier 2. But Bernard would have been perhaps unassigned anyway, because of the Fusion University issue at the time. And Glister, he's definitely probably the most expensive player on the roster, because he came from Gen G and was doing very well with Gen G. But I don't think he is as expensive as some other players in the league. Let's put it that way. But you can clearly see that London Spitfire have scaled down with the likes of Although, Babel, Jihan, Krillin. I know Krillin was there before. Sanguinar. Even Hylie to some respects, because Soul Dynasty were never going to keep Hylie. They wanted to offload him anyway with the roster they've got now. So you have to say that he probably wasn't that expensive for the London Spitfire to acquire. So this rumour is a weird one, and I don't entirely go along with it. There are some, as I've just said with the roster, some things you could say perhaps support it. But the biggest thing for me is that British Hurricane would no longer exist if there was disgruntlement from Cloud9 in terms of Overwatch esports and stuff like that, because basically British Hurricane is going to make less money than London Spitfire is. Much less money. We know these struggles that are going on in Tier 2, so if I'm worried about an org, generally I will look at what they're doing in Tier 2. If they're not doing anything in Tier 2, then I've got to look at the Overwatch League stuff, and with the Cloud9 and London Spitfire still having an academy team, I'm not worried for that at the moment. So take those rumours with a massive pinch of salt if you see them. That's what I will say. And we will see what happens in the future. If London does get sold at some point, then that's what happens. But we will see in the future. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.